3 years ago, I watched my best friend smile as my name vanished from our work. I said nothing. 1 week later, her face was everywhere for all the wrong reasons. Welcome to the last lesson. If you're new here, subscribe for more real stories about betrayal, growth, and the unexpected ways life teaches us who we really are. I met Sarah Chen in the fall of our sophomore year, in a cramped studio classroom that smelled like coffee and laser-cut wood. She walked in late, 20 minutes late, to our product design seminar, hair in a messy bun, oversized hoodie, eyes scanning the room for an empty seat. There was one next to me. She slid into it without asking, dropped her backpack with a theatrical sigh, and whispered, "Please tell me I didn't miss anything important." I liked her immediately. There was something magnetic about Sarah. She had this energy, this way of making you feel like you were part of something bigger just by being near her. She talked fast, laughed loud, and had opinions about everything. Within 2 weeks, we were inseparable. We'd stay up until 3 in the morning in the design lab, surrounded by foam core models and failed prototypes, talking about our dreams. She wanted to launch a startup someday, something that would change the way people interacted with technology. I wanted to create things that mattered, things that solved real problems for real people. "We should work together," she said one night, leaning back in her chair, eyes bright with possibility. Like, actually build something. Not just for a grade, for us. I remember nodding, feeling that rare kind of hope that only comes when you think you found someone who sees the world the way you do. Looking back now, I think that was the moment I started trusting her more than I trusted myself. Junior year passed in a blur of group projects and late-night brainstorming sessions. We became known as a duo. People would reference us in the same breath, like we were a single unit. "Have you talked to Sarah and her?" "Oh, those two are working on something together." It felt good. It felt safe. But there were moments, small ones, easy to ignore, that should have made me pause. Like the time we presented a joint project to our professor, and afterward, she stayed behind to talk to him alone. When I asked her what they discussed, she waved it off. "Oh, just some feedback stuff. Nothing major." Or the time she posted our work on her Instagram with the caption, "Late nights bringing my vision to life," and tagged the project account we created together. But somehow the photos only showed her workspace, her sketches, her hands holding the final model. I told myself it didn't matter. We were a team. Her success was my success. That's what I believed, anyway. Senior year arrived with a weight we all felt, the unspoken pressure of capstone projects, looming graduation, and the fear of stepping into the real world without a safety net. Our program required a year-long thesis project, something innovative, research-backed, and portfolio-worthy. It was the culmination of everything we'd learned, the project that would define us to future employers and grad schools. Sarah and I decided to partner up without hesitation. "We're going to kill this," she said, grinning as we sat in the campus cafe, notebooks open, ideas spilling out faster than we could write them down. We spent weeks narrowing our concept. Finally, we landed on it. An adaptive learning platform that used AI to personalize education for students with learning disabilities. It was ambitious, meaningful, and deeply personal for me. My younger brother had struggled with dyslexia his entire childhood, and I'd seen firsthand how traditional systems failed kids like him. Sarah loved the idea immediately. "This is it," she said. "This is the one." We divided responsibilities. I'd handle the research, user testing, design execution, and technical development. Sarah would manage project coordination, stakeholder communication, and presentation strategy. It seemed fair. It seemed balanced. The months that followed were the hardest I'd ever worked. I spent every free moment buried in research papers, conducting interviews with educators and parents, sketching wireframes, and building prototypes. I learned to code features I didn't know how to code. I tested iterations until my eyes burned. Sarah was there too, at first. She'd sit across from me in the library, laptop open, taking notes during meetings, sending emails to potential advisors and judges. She was organized, efficient, good at managing the logistics I didn't have the bandwidth for. But somewhere around February, I started noticing a shift. She began taking meetings without me. "You were busy," she'd explain. I didn't want to bother you. She'd make decisions about the project direction and tell me after the fact. I ran it by Professor Navarro. He thinks we should pivot the branding this way. Wait, we? I'd blinked, confused. When did you talk to him? Oh, last week. You were working on the back-end stuff? So I just handled it. Handled it. I swallowed the discomfort rising in my chest. She was just being proactive, I told myself. She was helping. But then I noticed the way she spoke about the project in public. At portfolio reviews, she'd stand front and center, gesturing confidently, saying things like, "When I designed this feature," or "My approach was to focus on accessibility." My, not ours. I'd stand beside her, silent, nodding along, telling myself it was just her presentation style. She was good at talking to people. That's why we were partners. She had skills I didn't. But late at night, alone in my dorm room, I'd feel this quiet, creeping unease. Something wasn't right. April came. The project was nearly finished. I'd poured everything into it, 6 months of research, dozens of iterations, countless sleepless nights. It was the best work I'd ever done. Sarah scheduled a final meeting with our faculty advisor 2 weeks before presentation day. "Let's go over everything one last time," she said. "Make sure we're aligned." I showed up to the meeting exhausted but proud. I'd brought printed documentation, a polished prototype, and notes on our user testing results. Sarah was already there when I walked into Professor Navarro's office. She was sitting in the chair closest to him, laptop open, speaking in that confident, easy tone she always used with authority figures. "Oh, perfect timing," she said, glancing up at me. I was just walking him through the final structure. I sat down, opened my folder, ready to contribute. But as the meeting went on, I realized something strange. Sarah kept saying I designed the interface to prioritize intuitive navigation. I conducted interviews with 12 educators. I built the algorithm to adapt in real time. I sat there, frozen, waiting for her to correct herself, waiting for her to say we. She never did. Professor Navarro nodded along, impressed, scribbling notes. I wanted to speak up. I wanted to interrupt, to say, "Actually, I did that. I built that. That was my research." But I didn't. Because she was my friend. Because I didn't want to seem petty. Because I thought maybe I misheard. Maybe she'd clarify later. We left the meeting together, walking across campus in silence. "That went well," she said brightly. I nodded. I should have said something then. But I didn't. And that silence, that specific silence, is what cost me everything. The morning of presentation day, I woke up at 5 a.m. with my heart already racing. I showered, put on the blazer I'd bought specifically for this day, and arrived at the auditorium 45 minutes early. The space was already buzzing with activity, students setting up displays, faculty judges reviewing clipboards, a small group of people I didn't recognize setting up cameras near the back. Sarah had mentioned that a local tech blog might cover some of the presentations. Apparently, our university's innovation showcase had gained attention in recent years for producing startup founders and award-winning projects. I didn't think much of it. I was too nervous. I found our assigned presentation station, a sleek setup with a large monitor, podium, and space for our prototype display. Sarah wasn't there yet, but our materials were: the physical model, the laptop, the display boards. I started arranging everything, making sure the prototype was positioned perfectly, that the demo would run smoothly. That's when I noticed the slides. Sarah's laptop was already connected to the monitor, presentation file open in preview mode. I leaned closer, intending to do a quick check, make sure all our transitions worked, that the videos were embedded correctly. The title slide appeared first. Adapt Learn, Revolutionizing Education Through Personalized AI. Created by Sarah Chun. I stared at the screen. My name wasn't there. I blinked, thinking maybe it was a formatting issue. Maybe my name was on the next slide. I clicked forward. Slide 2, Project Overview. Sarah's name in the corner. Slide 3, Research Methodology. Sarah's name. Slide 4, Design Process. Sarah Chun, Lead Designer. My hand started shaking. I clicked through faster. 10 slides, 15, 20. My name appeared nowhere. Not in the credits. Not in the contributors section. Not even in a footnote. Every piece of research I'd conducted, presented as hers. Every interview I'd transcribed, attributed to her work. Every design iteration I'd sketched at 3 a.m., labeled as her creative vision. 6 months of my life, erased. Hey, you're here early. Sarah's voice cut through the ringing in my ears. She walked up, coffee in hand, smiling that easy, confident smile. I turned to face her slowly, pointing at the screen. Sarah. My voice came out quieter than I intended. Where's my name? She glanced at the slides, then back at me, and for just a fraction of a second, so brief I almost missed it, something flickered across her face. Not surprise, not confusion, calculation. Oh, she said, setting her coffee down. Yeah, I meant to talk to you about that. Talk to me about what? She sighed, like I was being difficult. Look, I restructured the presentation last night. It flows better with a single narrative voice. Having two presenters was making it feel disjointed. That's not what I'm asking. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I'm asking why my name isn't anywhere on this project. My name. On work I did. Sarah's expression shifted, still calm, but colder now. She crossed her arms. You helped, obviously, and I appreciate that. But let's be honest, I'm the one who shaped this project into what it is. I secured the advisor meetings. I positioned us for press coverage. I made the connections that got us on the judge's radar. Helped. That word hit me like a slap. I built the entire prototype, I said, my voice shaking now. I conducted every interview. I wrote the research documentation. I designed the interface. You did technical execution, she interrupted smoothly, which is important. But vision? Strategy? That was me. That's what makes a project matter. She said it so confidently, so matter-of-factly, like she genuinely believed it. Or maybe she didn't believe it at all. Maybe she just didn't care. Sarah, you can't do this. I already did. She picked up her coffee, took a sip. Presentation starts in 30 minutes. You can either support this, or you can make a scene and ruin both our chances. Your choice. She walked away to greet a faculty member who just entered the auditorium. I stood there, frozen, staring at the slides on the screen. I should have walked out. I should have gone straight to the department head, demanded they stop the presentation, brought receipts, emails, drafts, process videos, all the documentation I had. But I didn't, because 30 students were setting up around me, because judges were taking their seats, because professors I respected were watching, because there were cameras in the back of the room, and the idea of causing a public confrontation made my chest tighten with panic. And because some small, pathetic part of me still didn't want to believe that my best friend, the person I trusted for 2 years, had just betrayed me this completely. So I stayed. I stood off to the side as Sarah presented our project to a panel of 5 judges, 2 faculty advisors, and a journalist from TechRise, a regional innovation blog. She was brilliant. I hated how brilliant she was. She spoke with confidence, clarity, and charisma. She told the story of Adapt Learn like it was her personal mission, her passion project, her vision brought to life through months of tireless work. She clicked through the slides, my research, my designs, my user testing data, and described every decision as though she'd made it herself. When I interviewed educators, she said the feedback was clear. One-size-fits-all learning doesn't work. I interviewed them. When I designed the adaptive algorithm, she continued, I focused on real-time responsiveness. I built that algorithm. When I tested prototypes with students, she said, smiling warmly, I saw firsthand how transformative personalized learning can be. I conducted those tests. The judges leaned forward, taking notes, nodding along. The journalist was recording video. And I stood there, invisible, watching her take credit for 6 months of my life. When the demonstration portion began, Sarah turned to me for the first time. And I'd like to thank my assistant for helping with some of the technical setup, she said, gesturing toward me with a gracious smile. Assistant. A few people in the audience glanced my way politely, then returned their attention to Sarah. She ran the demo flawlessly, because I'd built it to be flawless. Every feature worked exactly as intended. The judges were impressed. One of them, a woman from a local venture capital firm, asked, "Have you considered commercializing this?" Sarah's eyes lit up. "Absolutely. I've already been exploring potential paths forward." Another judge, "This is graduate level work. Have you thought about pursuing a PhD?" "I'm weighing my options," Sarah said. "But yes, I'm passionate about continuing this research." My research. The presentation ended to enthusiastic applause. Afterward, people swarmed Sarah. Faculty members congratulated her. The journalist asked for a follow-up interview. Students from other projects came over to compliment the work. I stood near the display table, hands clenched at my sides, invisible. One of the judges, an older professor I'd never met, paused near me. "You worked on this too?" he asked kindly. "Yes," I said quietly. "I did." He nodded. "Well, your team lead did an excellent job presenting. You should be proud." Team lead. He walked away. I found Sarah 20 minutes later, outside the auditorium, talking animatedly with the TechRise journalist. They were laughing about something. I waited until the journalist stepped away to take a phone call. "Sarah." She turned, still smiling. "Hey, that went amazing, right? I think we actually have a shot at winning." "We." I stared at her. "There is no we. You just erased me." Her smile faltered slightly. "Don't be dramatic. You're still part of the team. My name isn't anywhere. You called me your assistant. Because that's functionally what you were," she said, and this time there was no warmth in her voice. No pretense. Just cold, brutal honesty. "You did good work. I'm not denying that. But I'm the one who made this project matter. I'm the one who positioned it for success. I built everything." "You built what I told you to build," she interrupted. "There's a difference between execution and vision. And I'm sorry if you don't understand that, but this is how the industry works. Somebody has to be the face. Somebody has to take ownership. So you just decided that person would be you." She shrugged. "Yeah, I did." For a long moment, we just looked at each other. This person standing in front of me, I didn't recognize her anymore. Or maybe I'd never really known her at all. "You're going to regret this," I said quietly. She laughed. Actually laughed. "Am I?" She tilted her head, studying me. Because from where I'm standing, I just gave the presentation of my life, impressed a VC judge, and landed a press feature. What exactly do I have to regret? She walked away before I could respond. That night, my phone lit up with texts. Friends from the program. Saw Sarah's presentation. So cool. Congrats. My roommate. Wait, I thought you worked on that project too. My younger brother. Mom said your project went well. Send pics. I didn't respond to any of them. I sat on my dorm room floor, laptop open, staring at the folder labeled Adapt Learn Process Documentation. 6 months of work. Emails, drafts, video recordings of user testing sessions, timestamped design files, everything. My friends had already started messaging me, urging me to expose her. "You have to say something," they insisted. "You have to fight back." But I didn't. Not because I was scared. Because I knew something Sarah didn't. The truth doesn't need me to defend it. It just needs time. The award ceremony was held 3 days later in the university's main hall. Chandeliers, polished floors, the kind of formal event where everyone wore their best and pretended not to be nervous. I almost didn't go. I'd spent those 3 days in a fog, oscillating between anger and disbelief. My friends kept asking if I was okay. I kept saying I was fine. I wasn't fine, but I also wasn't broken. There's a strange clarity that comes after betrayal, once the initial shock fades. You start seeing things you missed before. Patterns, red flags, all those little moments that didn't make sense suddenly forming a complete, ugly picture. I went to the ceremony because I needed to see it through. Not for closure, I didn't believe in that. But because some part of me needed to witness exactly how far Sarah would take this. The answer, it turned out, was all the way. When they announced the winners for the Innovation Excellence Award, Sarah's name echoed through the hall. Sarah Chin, for her groundbreaking work on Adapt Learn, an AI-powered adaptive learning platform. The applause was thunderous. I watched from my seat in the back as she walked onto the stage, radiant in a navy dress, smiling that practiced, gracious smile she'd perfected. She accepted the trophy, a sleek glass sculpture, and stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you so much," she began, her voice steady and warm. "This project has been my passion for the past year, and I'm honored to receive this recognition." Her passion, her year. She continued, talking about her vision, her research process, her commitment to creating meaningful change in education. Not once did she mention my name. Not once did she acknowledge anyone else's contribution. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, face carefully neutral, and felt something inside me harden into steel. The next morning, Sarah's face was everywhere. The university's Instagram posted a photo of her holding the trophy. "Congratulations to Sarah Chin, winner of our Innovation Excellence Award." TechRise published their feature article, "Meet Sarah Chin, the student innovator revolutionizing education with AI." The piece was glowing. They quoted her extensively, described her as visionary and dedicated, and included photos of her presenting, her workspace, her holding the prototype I'd built with my own hands. One quote jumped out at me. "I spent countless sleepless nights perfecting every detail of Adapt Learn." When you're building something you truly believe in, the sacrifice doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like purpose. I read that line 3 times. She'd taken my sleepless nights, my sacrifice, my purpose, and claimed them as her own. By day 4, the story had spread beyond campus. A local news station did a segment on young innovators to watch. Sarah was featured prominently, interviewed in the design lab, talking about her plans to pursue a PhD and potentially launch a startup. She'd also updated her LinkedIn. Award-winning designer and researcher specializing in educational technology and AI-driven solutions. Her follower count exploded. Companies started reaching out. A tech accelerator invited her to apply for their summer program. Everything was falling into place for her. And I watched it all happen in real time, from the outside, invisible. My friends were furious on my behalf. "You have to expose her," Maya said, sitting across from me in the library. "You have proof. Emails, files, everything." "Post it on Twitter," Jordan suggested. "Tag the university. Tag TechRise. Tag everyone. Blow this whole thing up." They meant well. They wanted justice. But I didn't want to become part of Sarah's story. I didn't want to be the bitter ex-partner who couldn't handle someone else's success. I didn't want my name attached to drama, to he said, she said accusations, to the kind of public spectacle that would follow me for years. More importantly, I knew something they didn't. I knew Sarah. I knew how she operated, how she cut corners, how she built her success on foundations that couldn't hold weight. And I knew that people like that don't last. So instead of screaming into the void, I did something quieter. I documented everything. I saved every email, every draft, every timestamp file. I recorded a detailed video walkthrough of my entire design process, 6 months of work, compressed into 40 minutes of narrated screen recordings and process documentation. I didn't post it publicly. I just saved it, backed it up in 3 places, and waited. The collapse started on day 6. I was in the campus cafe, working on a project for another class, when my phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Holy shit. Check TechRise Twitter." I opened the app. TechRise had posted an update. "We're investigating claims regarding our recent feature on Sarah Chin and the Adapt Learn project. We take attribution and journalistic integrity seriously, and will update our audience as we learn more." My heart started pounding. I scrolled down. Someone had replied to their original article thread, an anonymous account with a newly created profile. The reply contained a single link, a Google Drive folder. I clicked it. Inside were screenshots, dozens of them, email exchanges between Sarah and me, where I'd sent her design drafts, research findings, and technical documentation. The timestamps clearly showed I created the work, then shared it with her. Early project files with metadata showing I was the original creator. A video one I'd recorded months ago of me explaining the adaptive algorithms architecture, walking through the code I'd written. Photos from our user testing sessions, where I was clearly the one conducting the interviews while Sarah took notes in the background. Everything was there. Everything was time-stamped. and it had been sent to TechRise, the university administration, and several faculty members. I found out later that it was Marcus, a guy from our program who'd worked on a project adjacent to ours. He'd watched Sarah's presentation, found it suspicious, and reached out to ask if I was okay. I told him the truth. He'd asked for my documentation, and he'd done what I couldn't bring myself to do. He'd exposed her. Not for clout, not for drama, because he believed it was right. Within hours, everything unraveled. TechRise pulled the article and issued an apology. We regret the error in attribution and are conducting a full review of our editorial process. The university launched an investigation into academic integrity violations. Sarah's LinkedIn was flooded with comments. People demanding answers. People who'd been impressed by her work now feeling deceived. The Tech Accelerator rescinded their invitation. The news station that had featured her issued a correction. By day 7, exactly 1 week after her moment of triumph, Sarah Chin had become a cautionary tale. Her name, which had been everywhere, was now associated with one word: fraud. I didn't see Sarah during those days. She stopped coming to campus, stopped responding to messages, disappeared from social media. The university's investigation concluded 2 weeks later. She was found responsible for academic misconduct and plagiarism. Her award was revoked. She wouldn't walk at graduation. I was officially credited as the primary creator of Adapt Learn. TechRise reached out to interview me. I declined. Several professors apologized for not noticing sooner. I accepted their apologies gracefully. My inbox filled with opportunities, companies who'd seen my work, programs interested in my research, people who wanted to collaborate. But none of it felt like victory. It just felt like the truth finally catching up. 43. 3 years passed. I graduated, took a job at an educational technology company, built new projects, better projects, projects with my name attached from the beginning. I didn't think about Sarah much anymore. She'd become a footnote in my story, a chapter I'd closed and moved on from. Until last Tuesday, I woke up to an email notification. The sender's name made my stomach drop. Sarah Chin. Subject line: I owe you an apology. I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. The email was long, 3 pages of rambling text. She explained how she'd been struggling, how the pressure of senior year had made her act irrationally, how she'd convinced herself she deserved the credit because she'd worked so hard on the strategic side. She talked about therapy, about growth, about how much she'd changed. She said she understood if I couldn't forgive her, but she needed me to know she was sorry. I've spent 3 years living with the shame of what I did, she wrote. I destroyed my own reputation and hurt someone I cared about. I hope you're doing well. I hope you've built the life you deserved. And I hope someday you can forgive me. I read the entire email once. Then I closed it, moved it to trash, and went back to making breakfast. Here's what I learned from all of this. You don't always need to fight back. Sometimes the best thing you can do is step aside and let consequences unfold naturally. Sarah didn't need me to destroy her. She destroyed herself the moment she decided her success was worth more than the truth. And the apology she sent 3 years too late, full of self-pity and excuses, didn't change anything. Not because I'm unforgiving, but because I stopped needing her acknowledgement a long time ago. My worth was never tied to whether she admitted what she did. I knew the truth. The people who mattered knew the truth. And that was enough. So if you're going through something similar, if someone's taking credit for your work, your ideas, your effort, I want you to remember this. Document everything. Keep receipts. Build your proof quietly. But don't let revenge consume you. Because the truth has a way of surfacing on its own. And people who build their success on lies, they don't last. You don't need to burn bridges. Just step back and watch them collapse under their own weight. 3 years later, I'm thriving. I'm building things that matter. I'm working with people who value integrity. And Sarah? She's a Google search result. A cautionary tale. A reminder that fame built on theft lasts exactly 1 week. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to this channel for more real stories about betrayal, growth, and the lessons life teaches us when we least expect them. Share your own experiences in the comments. I read every single one. And remember, your work, your worth, and your truth don't need validation from people who tried to steal them. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.